And welcome to our discussion of the many names of the holiday of Shavuot. We're going to share the screen and share with you a special presentation regarding this this special topic. So here we go. The holiday of Shavuot is perhaps the most complicated of holidays in terms of defining, just simply what it is. What is this holiday, and what do you call it? Is just part of trying to define what is it. So if we look at the many names of Shavuot, perhaps we can get to that question of what is Shavuot, which is the only holiday that's not a week, and what is it called, right? So really, Sukkot, although it's 8 days, the Sukkot part where you sit in the sukkah is really 7 days. Pesach, 7 days, and then one holiday that's not 7 days, Shavuot. What is it called? Weeks. It's very strange, isn't it? So let's see what's going on and why is it going on. So we look in the Torah once again, as we did last week. We're looking at meaning of Shemitah. Went through a similar survey to go through all the times when it talks about Shavuot and see what it calls it and how it functions. So in Exodus 23, that's Parshat Mishpatim, when the God is making the first covenant before the golden calf with the Jews at Sinai. So he talks about the 3 pilgrimage festivals. After Pesach, he says, Chag HaKatzir, Bikurei Masech, the feast of harvest, reaping, cutting the wheat. Bikurei Masech, the first of your deeds, of your harvest, first fruits of your work, what you sow in the field, what you plant in the field. And then you have the harvest of gathering, that's Sukkot. The harvest of gathering. So the harvest of reaping. So that's one of the first names. Feast of the harvest of reaping. And it also calls it Bikurei. It's the first. Is it Bikurim? Is it the Chag HaBikurim? You bring the Bikurim? Is that you take your basket of fruit and you bring it on Shavuot? Is that what we're going to do and have a parade of people coming from Haifa, from the Galilee, where they're going to come with their basket of fruit on Shavuot? Would that be appropriate? To have a parade on Shavuot? Is that what you're supposed to do? So let's think about it. So Rashi says, no. It's the time of the bringing of the first fruits. Oh, you mean the basket? No. He says, it is a holiday of the first fruits. In what sense? It's the time of the 2 showbreads. Now, we always complain that Shavuos has no rituals, but it really does. It has a beautiful ritual. It has the 2 loaves of bread in the Beit HaMikdash. Not anymore. But in the Beit HaMikdash, you had the 2 loaves of bread. Special loaves, they were chametz breads. And they sort of serve as bookends. You have the barley harvest at the 2nd day of Pesach, beginning of the Omer. At the end of the Omer, you have the 2 loaves of bread. Those 2 loaves of bread are the first time that you're allowed to bring new wheat as a sacrifice in the Beit HaMikdash. Until Shavuot, they had to use old wheat from the previous year, or that grew before the previous Shavuot. Outside of Beit HaMikdash, you could use new wheat starting the 2nd day of Pesach, with the first day of the Omer. But in the Beit HaMikdash, the new wheat can only be used starting that day of Shavuot. And he says, after all, it's called the Yom HaBikurim, the day of Bikurim. But not the Bikurim, the first fruits we all know and love, like bringing your first grapes and your first olives and your first dates. Truth is, we'll see later, is that really the harvest time for those fruits? But rather, it's the first time to bring the new wheat. We know from the book of Ruth, which we've been studying, that this is the time of year, that's why we read the book of Ruth, where you have the barley harvest and then the wheat harvest. So it's not the Bikurim that we all know and love, where you bring first fruits of like fruit to the Beit HaMikdash. It's a time of bringing the first wheat in the Beit HaMikdash that's allowed. The first wheat, other than the first barley, which was Pesach, first wheat is Shavuot. Ibn Ezra, it's the beginning of the wheat harvest. Not that you bring a special sacrifice about wheat, but you do. But it's Bikurim in the sense that it's the beginning of the wheat harvest. Just factually, that's the time, beginning of the wheat harvest. The Hamek Davar, the Netziv, in the 19th century, he said, it is the harvest. HaKatzir. What harvest? The one all pagans celebrated, the old harvest festival. But we celebrate that holiday of pagan offerings for the first fruits, we celebrate it as Shavuot. Now, here's the million-dollar question. Do you bring Bikurim on this Chag HaBikurim? It's the day of Bikurei Masecha. It's the day of the Bikurim. We'll see later, it's the Yom HaBikurim, the day of Bikurim. So then, do you bring Bikurim on Shavuot? Shita Mekubetzet, commentary on the Talmud in the Tractate of Bechorot, talks a little bit about firstborn animals, so it digresses into first fruits. It says, Bikurim were brought after Shavuot, not on Shavuot. Rashi, in his commentary in Sanhedrin, says, no, you do bring on Shavuot. Why? You want to minimize the trouble. You have to come to Jerusalem twice. You come there for Shavuot, and then you bring your first fruits then. But of course, there's a factual question. Are all the fruits ripe by now? Right? If you had an orchard, do you think everything would have the ripe fruits already now? It just started. The rainy season was just over. You have to check the facts. Is that the way it works in Israel? All the trees full of fruits at this time of year? I don't think so. The Katava Kabbalah, Rabbi Michelberg from Germany in the 19th century, says, no, it's not the right time for fruits. He asserts very clearly, it's not the time for fruits. So it's not that kind of Bikurim. It's the other kind of Bikurim. The Shizim Gubet says that you can bring it the day after. And that's the halach in the Mishnah, that you're allowed to bring your first fruits, not before Shavuot, only once the Shavuot starts. So if you do have any new fruits, grapes or what, you could bring them to the temple starting now. But you have all the way until Sukkot to bring your first fruits. So it's not necessarily the holiday of first fruits in the way we might think. It inaugurates the season of bringing first fruits, and it has a first fruit in the sense that the wheat is considered a fruit. Rashi explains that once upon a time in Garden of Eden, wheat grew on a tree. Some say it was the bread of knowledge, that was the first fruit of knowledge. But the regular fruits, they're brought during the summer. Welcome to Diana. Second time we have a mention of Shavuot, it calls it Shavuot, the holiday of weeks. But again, it's funny, because it's the only holiday that's not a week, it's only one day. It's the first of the Ketzir Chitim. Here it's clear, of the first wheat, of the cutting of the wheat. It's not the Bikurim that we know and love, the first fruits when you bring your olives and grapes and pomegranates to Jerusalem, the big basket and the big parade. No, you're not going to make a parade on Shavuot. That's done during the week when you can walk from your city to Jerusalem. It's done during the summer. But it's the first of the Ketzir Chitim, of the harvest of the wheat. Maybe it's just celebrating Ibn Ezra, celebrating the wheat. The Emek Davar, celebrating the harvest festival. People start harvesting their wheat. Parshat Emor, a couple of weeks ago, we read about counting the Omer. You have Pesach, second day of Pesach, you start counting the Omer from after that day, 7 full weeks. Until the end of the 7th week, you count 50 days, and you bring a new offering. And you should bring 2 breads. What's the new offering? 2 breads. That's the symbol of Shavuot. Shavuot in the Beis HaMikdash had a very specific ritual. 2 loaves of chametz bread. Chametz is unusual in the Beit HaMikdash. Usually, you do not bring chametz for an offering. Chametz is forbidden. But certain offerings did have chametz. One of them is the shtei halechem, the 2 loaves of bread. And it's bikurim. It's first fruits. We see here that you can have bread that's called bikurim. You and I think bikurim are first fruits. But no, bikurim can mean the first wheat, turn it into bread. You bring that bread, it's your first fruits to God of the first season after the rainy season is over. Now everything's growing like crazy after the big rain in the winter. The rain is over, but now things grow from the water in the ground, and you have the first wheat. Then you bring some sacrifices with that wheat, special sacrifices, and goats and all that. And then you wave that bikurim in like a lulav. You wave it up and down and back and forth and all around like a lulav. We wave the lulav like we wave the 2 breads with the 2 kvasim, with these 2 sheep that they brought. And that's a holy sacrifice. And then you declare on that day, no work can be done. In all your generations, even when there's no bread, when there's no waving of the bread, you still have Shavuos. That's the question. If we don't have a waving of the Omer, so you're counting from the waving of the Omer, but we don't have a waving of the Omer. And then Shavuos is after the 50 days after the waving of the Omer, but we don't have a waving of the Omer. So is the Shavuos still a holiday? So it says, no, for all generations. One midrash says, I think it's a Shochar Tov, Lechach Tov, says that all generations, meaning even if you don't have the waving of the Omer and you don't have the bringing of the first fruits and you don't have the bringing of the two breads, still have Shavuos, 50 days after Pesach. But notice there's no date. It says on this very day. When is that? After 50 days. When's that? After Pesach. What day of the month is it? Doesn't say. Doesn't even give it a name. It's just a holy day. Doesn't even say what day it is. The Bikurim bread are brought, but what's the name of the holiday? In Parshat Emor, which is all about the holidays, doesn't give a name to this holiday. Strange. It's a strange holiday. In the list of holidays and the sacrifices in Numbers 28, which we always read as a second Torah on Rosh Chodesh, on Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we read from Numbers 28. Parshat Pinchas talks about different holidays, and the name of this holiday is Yom HaBikurim, the day of the first fruits, which, as we said, doesn't necessarily mean actual fruit, but means wheat. When you bring a new offering to God, maybe that's the definition of Bikurim. Definition of first fruits means a new offering. What's the new offering? The two breads. B'Shavuotechem, on your weeks. On your weeks? How does he translate it here? On your feast of weeks? Doesn't Shavuos, is that what it means? Shavuos means the holiday of Shavuos. Your Shavuot, is that what we say? Your Pesach? Your Chag HaMatzos? Your Sukkot? Sukkotechem? It's a funny expression. On your weeks. And it's a holiday that's the only holiday. It's not a week. It's only a day. It says we should declare on this very day. It's only one day. So we have a lot of questions. More questions than answers. Seforno says, what do you mean on your weeks? On account of the weeks of cutting. It's the weeks before. It's not that Shavuos is a week. Shavuos is only one day. But you have all the weeks that led up to this. Those are the holidays of weeks. Compared to Jeremiah, appointed to the harvest. The reason for apparently at the beginning of this, anyway, he says a strange bishavotechem on the account of your weeks. It's a strange thing. Take a look at this for him. Chizkuni says, and on the day of the offering of the first fruits, the reason why this day is called the first fruits is that the commencing of this with that date, the farmer can present such fruit. So Chizkuni, a rabbi from France, lived after Rashi, thought that you did bring first fruits starting with this day. That's what he thinks. There's a debate whether you could bring the first fruits on that. What is B'Shavuot? What does Chizkuni say? What do you mean on your weeks? It's translated by the Targum. The official translation is on your Atzeret. On your holiday that we, today, the rabbis call Atzeret, they call it like the final holiday. You have Pesach, and then the final holiday to finish off the Pesach season, the harvest season, is called Atzeret, the end. So Atzeret, if we call it Shavuos. Modern lingo, where do we call it? Shavuos. So it says on your Shavuos. In the rabbinic lingo, you call it Atzeret. So on your Atzeret. So it's by the name of the festival. The rabbis call it Atzeret. If it was called Shavuos, they would say your Shavuos. It means it's not a week. It's the name of a holiday. It has nothing to do with weeks. After the weeks are over, you have this holiday. It's called Shavuos. And on your Shavuos, you have this day. But it's still strange. It's the day of Bikurim on your weeks. But it's not a week. It's only a day. It's a strange holiday. It's strange. So the Chizkuni thinks you do bring first fruits, and that your Shavuos means the holiday that's called Shavuos. It's called Shavuos. Why is it called Shavuos? It's only one day. Deuteronomy also has a list of holidays, and it says Shiva Shavuot Yisper Lach. It's all about weeks. You should count 7 weeks for yourself. From the beginning of the reaping. Now, is that just the general reaping, or is that the reaping of the Omer that you wave? It's hard to say. You should start counting 7 weeks. And you should make a holiday of weeks. Holiday of weeks. It's only one day. From the gifts that you're given, as God blesses you. So what does that mean? A holiday of weeks. We'll get to it. We'll give the answer later. The suspense is building. The Gemara Rosh Hashanah, in order to understand the answer we're going to get, we need to look in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. Gemara Rosh Hashanah says, how do we know that you could bring the sacrifices of Shavuos after Shavuos? Well, let me explain the problem. Every time you come to Beis HaMikdash, it's Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. People might come for the Bikurim. They might come eat their fruits, their second tithing, the Meiser Sheni. They might come to see what's going on in Yom Kippur. There are a lot of occasions you might come. Sometimes people would come and pray in the Beit HaMikdash as the part of the sort of a prayer circle, it's called the Mamadot. You might come to Jerusalem to bring your firstborn animals. You might, there are a lot of different reasons. But when you come on Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, you can't come empty-handed. You're not allowed to come empty-handed. So what do? You have to bring an offering, a celebration offering to celebrate the holidays. You can eat meat, a olat riyah that you give to the Beit HaMikdash that you don't eat, that you just bring for the fact that you come and see God and have an experience with God. If everybody who comes to the Beit HaMikdash has to bring a holiday offering, and sometimes the holiday falls on Shabbos, you can't even bring the offering, then how are you going to bring an offering of, take a guess, 1 million people, 500,000 people, I don't know, even a few tens of thousands of people? How are you going to bring it on one day? We need a make-up period. On Pesach and Shavuos, you have 7 days to bring it, Pesach and Sukkot. But on Shavuos, how are you going to bring it in one day? So clearly, there must be a make-up system where you can bring it on other days. So Talmud and Rosh Hashanah says, how do you know that? How do you know that you could make-up sacrifices? So the answer is, Nafkalu miditani Rabbi Bar Shmuel. We learned it from what the Rabbi Bar Shmuel taught. Tani Rabbi Shmuel, he taught a special bright and outside source. Amra Torah Manei Yami. The Torah says, count the days and sanctify the month. Count days and sanctify Atzeret. Sanctify the holiday of Shavuos. Ma Chodesh L'Munyav. Just like, how do you make a month? Well, it has constituent units. And what's the unit of a month? Days. When you have 29, 30, in America, 31 days, then you have a month. In Judaism, 29 to 30 days, it's a month. It averages out for the lunar month, which is 29 and a half days. Just like when you count the month, you use constituent days. So too, when you count Shavuos, it has the constituent units of Shavuos is a Shavuot. The constituent unit of the holiday called weeks is a week. Meaning that you have 7 weeks, and after the 7 weeks, you have a week holiday. That's why it's called Shavuos. This is what the commentary we're about to see is going to suggest. So, now what does that mean? What does that mean? So he says, well, maybe it's only one day. Says the Gemara. Maybe it's only one day. So maybe you have one day. You count the days, and then you have one day to finish it off. Because after all, you have 49 days, and you finish off with one day. Amar Rava, so Rava answers, Atu Atzeres Yomi Manina. Do we only count days when we're counting? We count weeks. When you finish counting the weeks, you have to have something that relates to that weeks. After all, we said, it's a mitzvah to count days and a mitzvah to count weeks. Like for instance, today, it's 42 days, which are 6 weeks in the Omer. So we always say it's 6 weeks. So why are we counting weeks? Because we're going to count days, which is going to lead to Shavuot, and we're going to count weeks, which is going to lead to the whole week when you're allowed to bring sacrifices for Shavuot for a whole week. That's how the Gemara derives it. And also, it's called Shavuot. So if it's called Shavuot, of course it's a week. You think a holiday called Shavuot, you can only bring sacrifices for one day? Why do you think it's called Shavuot? It's called Shavuot because it's a week. Comes Yor Sameach, and he says exactly this. Yor Sameach was a rabbi, Mayor Simcha of Dvinsk, famous Jewish city of Dvinsk, who lived in the mid-19th century, early 20th century, and he wrote a major commentary on Torah called Meshech Chochmah, and on more significantly on Rambam called the Or Sameach. The Brisker circles, there are different discussions. They like his commentary, they don't, but he certainly had interesting ideas. So here's one interesting idea that he shared. He says, look, the Rambam says it's a mitzvah to count the days with the weeks. So what's the main thing? Audience participation. What's the main thing? If it's a mitzvah to count the days with the weeks, what's the main thing? You can unmute yourself.
Counting?
If it's a mitzvah to count the days with the weeks, what's the main mitzvah? If I said to you, it's a mitzvah to have chocolate with your cereal.
It's important
with
to
your
eat.
ice cream. What's the main thing? The chocolate or the ice cream? It's a mitzvah to have chocolate with your ice cream. If I said it's a mitzvah to have fish with your salad, what's the main thing?
It's important to eat.
Which one? Which is the main dish? If I say it's important to have chocolate with your ice cream, it's important to have strawberries with your blueberries. What's the main berry?
The second one.
Correct. So if he says it's a mitzvah to count the days with the weeks, what's the main thing?
Weeks.
Weeks. Correct. It is correct. So we see that the counting of the weeks is most important. Anyway, that's not the Sphad-Beth, that's not the Or Sameach, that's what I'm pointing out. Now, Amnami Geras Harama, however, Meir Halevi Abulafia, who was a major commentator in the 13th century Provence, he said as follows in a letter that he wrote, that the count of the weeks in the Torah law, in the Torah law, only when there's a Beis HaMikdash. The counting of the weeks is only significant when there is a Beis HaMikdash. When there was a temple, the weeks were important. And as it says, from the beginning of the reaping of the sheaves, you should start to count 7 weeks. The weeks are counted from the harvest. Or Sameach is asserting, you don't have to agree with it, that the harvest means the barley harvest, meaning the waving of the Omer. So the weeks are only a function of the barley reaping, which is a ritual in the Beit HaMikdash. When there's no ritual in the Beit HaMikdash, the weeks go away. That's his assertion of the Ramah. From the beginning of the reaping of the sheaves, you should start to count 7 weeks. But the count of the 7 days is always a Torah law, even nowadays. And this is what it says in the Talmud, that Amemar counted days and not weeks. There was one rabbi, he says, I'm not counting weeks anymore. He says, why not? Why? It's to remember the temple only. It's not a Torah law, just to remember the temple. But the count of the weeks are not a Torah law. The Ramah says that the Meir Avulafia from Provence says the weeks are not a Torah law anymore. It's an old thing. But the days I'm still counting because that still counts. That's what he's claiming. Now, if you want to ask, why the Meir Avulafia made an assertion that weeks are a thing of the past. We don't have to do it anymore, according to one rabbi in the Talmud. And the days, that still exists. And that explains, by the way, says the Rambam, why we say today is 42 days, which, by the way, if you add it up, 6 weeks. Did I just count weeks? Did I count the weeks? I said today is 42 days, which are 6 weeks. Did I just count weeks? So Ramah wants to say that if you want to count weeks, you would say today is 6 weeks. I didn't say that. I said today is 42 days, which are 6 weeks, which means that I'm not really counting the weeks. We're doing what Amemar said in the Talmud. We only count days. And we mentioned the weeks, but we don't really count weeks. Even though weeks used to be the main thing, according to Rambam. We don't count it anymore. But if you ask why do we say that we don't count weeks anymore? We only count days. Why? So I would say, says the Or Sameach, that it's a decree of the king. Oh, we don't know why. That's what it is. And it's among the secrets of God. And who can approach them? We don't know. And so it is Rabbeinu Yerucham. If you look at Rabbeinu Yerucham, he doesn't explain it. But I think, he says, that it's a secret that the rabbis revealed in the first chapter of Rosh Hashanah, which we just read. That they learned that the makeup of the sacrifices, the makeup, the do-over, the option of bringing sacrifices for all 7 days, for the pilgrimage and for rejoicing for 7 days. Why is 7 days? Why? For just as a month is in its constituent units, when you have a month, so Chodesh Yamim, the Torah says that you'll eat the slav, the quail, for Chodesh Yamim, a month of days, because a month consists of days. That's how you get a month, when you have a certain amount of days. And it also says Shavuot. What's Shavuot? How could you have Shavuos? It has to consist of Shavuos, of weeks. So it turns out that they interpret that the whole week is the makeup for the sacrifice of the holiday. The whole week is the holiday, and so is the secret revealed. It's a week holiday. It's a whole week holiday. So that's why we don't count weeks anymore. You see, they used to count weeks so that you could have a week of bringing sacrifices. You count 7 weeks, and then that is enough to create a function called a week of sacrifices. But now we don't need that extra week. We don't need to bring sacrifices. It's enough to have one day. So we count 49 days, which leads to the 50th day, which is one day. Now it's a one-day holiday. It's not a week holiday anymore. So that's why, in fact, the rabbis call it what? The rabbis call it Atzeret. They call it a one-day finishing of the holiday. They don't call it weeks, because that's in the olden days. It's not weeks anymore. It's only a day. You don't have sacrifices all 7 days. He goes on. He says, for the Torah says, count days and sanctify Atzeret, the name of the holiday, one day, and count weeks and sanctify the holiday of Shavuot, for the sacrifice of the holiday for a week. And that's why it says the holiday weeks you should make for you when you start to cut the stalks, meaning the Omer, which is a sacrifice, which is only there when there's a temple. That's when you have the weeks, and that's why the Torah in Deuteronomy talks about weeks, because it's talking about starting from the sacrifice. When you have sacrifices, Shavuot is a week long. Not that you refrain from work for a week, but you bring sacrifices for a week. And that's what Rabbi Eliezer says. He says that nowadays, if let's say someone, God forbid, just lost a loved one, and then comes Shavuot, he says, oh, the morning is canceled. Well, wait a second. The morning is canceled by a 7-day holiday. But if it's only a one-day holiday, it doesn't cancel it anymore. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. He thinks that Shavuot doesn't cancel the holidays. We don't agree with him, but he says that the Shavuot does not cancel anything because it's just a one-day thing. In the olden days, it used to be 7 days, because in the olden days, it was a week, because they would count the weeks and they would have a week holiday. But we only have a one-day holiday. A one-day holiday doesn't cancel. Why Shiva, which is 7 days, why should it be canceled by a one-day holiday? So nothing. That explains that. And it's also why on the second day of Shavuos, we have 2 days of Shavuos. He said, why do you have 2 days? He said, outside of Israel, we have to have 2 days. Yeah, but what gives you a right to have a second day? He says, well, there used to be a 7-day holiday. Where does it say that? Well, in Deuteronomy, it talks about the holiday of the weeks. So we'll read that holiday to justify why we're having a second-day holiday, because in the olden days, today would be the second day of a week holiday. So he wants to say that's why we read it on that day. I think that's what he means by that last point. It's a little bit unclear. In any event, the Or Sameach has given us an explanation of why it's called Shavuos, because years ago, it was a week-long holiday, and that's why it's called Shavuos. However, we haven't addressed the main thing that most people know, right? You get the 10 Commandments on Shavuos. We haven't said one word about that. We call it the Zman Matan Torah, the time of the giving of the Torah. Where do we get that from? How do we know that it's the time of the giving of the Torah? Well, it says in the Torah, at the beginning of chapter 19, where God begins to give us the 10 Commandments, it says that on the third month, that's Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, the third month, you have the Pesach month, the month of Lag BaOmer and Yag Matzmut, and then the month we're in now, and then next week, Sunday is going to be Shavuot is going to be Sivan, third month, first day they came to Mount Sinai, and then they did different stuff. And the Torah was given on the 6th day. How do we know what stuff they did? So the Gemara in Shabbos makes a calculation. The rabbis taught in old source. On the 6th day of the month, 10 commandments were given. Rabbi Yossi says in the 7th month. So Rabbi explains. The rabbi in the Talmud, and the later rabbi, he explained the following. Everyone agrees that Jews came to Sinai on the new month, Rosh Chodesh. As it says, the third month, they came there. That same day, doesn't say which day, probably first day, they came. And it's written, this month shall be the beginning. Okay, fine. The beginning of the month. Okay, fine. Let's assume they came on the Rosh Chodesh. And everyone agrees the Torah was given on Shabbos. Because it says, remember the Shabbos to keep it holy. And God said, remember this day where you got the Torah. Okay. Just as there, the mitzvah of remembrance is the very day of the Exodus, so too here, the mitzvah of remembrance was the very day of Shabbos. Okay. But the Rabbi Yossi and the sages disagree as to whether it's the 6th or 7th day. We say it's the 6th day, but he said it was the 7th. Regarding the termination of the month, Rabbi Yossi said that year, the new moon was established on the first day of the week. And like this year, the first day of the week, and the first day of the week, he didn't say anything to them because they were tired. They just got to Sinai. So he said, I'll give them a day. It was a resting day. And then the second day of the week, he said, you should be a priestly nation, a holy nation. And then the third day, he told them, you have to prepare yourself for 3 days, for 3 more days. So day 1, they came there. 2, they did nothing. Third day, he told them, you're a special nation. And then, I'm sorry, the second day he told them they're special. On the third day, he told them they're a special nation. And then on the fourth day, he told them, prepare yourselves for 3 days. Now, here's the question. Fourth day, prepare yourself for 3 days. So fourth, fifth, and sixth. And then we get the Torah on the sixth day, we get it on Friday. Or does he mean not today? Today's already started. You need 3 more days. And that would be not the fourth day, but the fifth day. Then on the fourth day, fourth, fifth, and sixth, they need to prepare. And then the seventh would be fourth, fifth, and sixth, preparation. Seventh day, they get the Torah. The rabbis hold on the second day of the week was a new moon. The Rosh Chodesh was not on Sunday, it was on Monday. So then you could have, they get there on Monday, take a break on Tuesday. Wednesday, he tells them, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, get ready. And Shabbos is, you get the Torah. So depending on which calculation, 6th or 7th. Today, we, outside of Israel and Memphis, we're great. We keep the 6th and the 7th. So we're wonderful according to Rabbi Yossi, according to everybody. We're keeping the time of the giving of the Torah. So that's where we get that. But then we have another question. If it's such a big deal that we got the Torah on this day, and really it's a secret, it doesn't tell you explicitly in the Torah, but the rabbis figured out that this holiday is actually the holiday for the celebration of getting the Torah. Is this holiday a split personality? On the one hand, it's a holiday of reaping, and the other hand, it's a holiday of the first fruits, and the other hand, it's a holiday of the giving of the Torah. What's the connection? What's the connection between the Chag HaChatzir, the first fruits, and the getting the Torah? Does anybody want to take their hand at it? What's the connection? The holiday of the first fruits and the holiday of the getting the Torah. Anybody? Open the floor. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Getting something nutritious, one for your body, one for your soul.
Good. Excellent. Torah is food for the thought, food for the soul. We got it. And what does that have to do with first fruits? What does that have to do with first?
New,
right? We got a new food. New food for the soul, food for the body. It's perfect. Excellent. So basically, Sphard-Beth, who of course, loves to dabble in these types of philosophical things. So he says as follows. I don't have a translation. He says as follows. Okay. The Zohar says, Torah gives life to everything. It's a Eitz Chaim. It is the tree of life. So a scholar who really gets close to the Torah, he hugs the tree, and then everybody, according to their own level, can try to get close to the Torah, to the tree of life. So on this day, they get a stirring from that tree. The tree says, hug me, and all the life that's in that tree, they get, and that's why it's called the day of the first fruits. And that's what it says in the Zohar as well. And therefore, that we get and therefore on that day we destroy the Yetzer Hara. So now on Atzeres means to stop working. It also means to stop the Yetzer Hara. So a very new fruit, a new existence where we can free ourselves of the Yetzer Hara, of the evil inclination. Second time he addresses it, he says on Shavuot there are 2 types of getting close, and that's why they're 2 loaves. The God gets close to us, we get close to God. That's why they have 2 loaves. We say, oh, it's great. We got the Torah from God on this day. We say, oh, God, thank you for the Torah on this day. And God says, I'm not going to call it that. That's what you do. I like this day because you get close to me. Your heart comes close to me, and you bring the first fruits to me. You bring your 2 breads. So God says, oh, it's a great day. The Jews come close to me. And the Jews say, oh, it's a great day that God came close to them. So it's a beautiful explanation. And that's why you have 2 loaves, one to represent God coming down to us, one to represent us going up to God. The Sphard-Beth also says another theory. Every year he had different theories. He says God implanted a lifelong Chaye Olam. We say in the blessings over the Torah that God implanted a lifelong way of life with us. Because the whole essence of the lifeblood of the world, of creation, is in the Torah. And that with the 10 Commandments, the Jews were given the whole essence of creation. And that's why it's called the day of the first fruits, because there was a fixing, there was a tikkun where the whole world was fixed with the power of the Torah and the mitzvos, which God gave us, which correspond to every bone in our body and every sinew. And with that, the whole world was fixed, and it all depends on us to fix the whole world. And they say that on Shavuot, the Sahara, the evil inclination is destroyed. That's why you can have the chametz. Usually, you don't have chametz in the Beit HaMikdash. It's disgusting. Chametz represents the evil inclination, but today the evil inclination is gone, so we can put the chametz there. And what's the idea? That just like the main thing, the main creation of the world is included the Yetzer Hara, but there was also a power to destroy it. God made us straight, and we have the power to destroy it. On this day, the Jews were fixed, and we were able to put ourselves at Mount Sinai without any confusion, and our souls went out. When we recognized the truth of God, when God said, "I am Lord your God," He showed us His power, and everyone recognized that we had this power of God with us, and each person was given the power of their soul, and everyone recognized the power of God above, and therefore that we could destroy our evil inclination, and that's the power of the world that God implanted within us, that the whole world depends on the souls of the Jews with the power of the Torah, and that's why it's called Bikurim, the first fruits, because the world was renewed on this day through the Torah. And every day, God renews his creation every single day. As the Rav of Pshitcha, there was a Rav of Pshitcha who was the founder of the Ger Hasidim. But Tuvo, God renews the day with His goodness. What does that mean? With the Torah. Through the Torah, there is renewal every day. And therefore, when we got the Torah, we were renewed with the power of the Torah. And that's why it's called the first fruits. And this is what he says you have to look into more deeply. Finally, the Sphard-Beth says another theory. It's the whole purpose of, why is it called the day of first fruits? Because the whole purpose of creation is for the Torah. And the Torah is called the first fruits. And therefore, when this potential came into reality, the whole world was fixed. And then we had a new renewal in ourselves. As we say, God renews Himself every day. And it says that with His goodness, and the goodness is the Torah. With the power of the Torah, we renew the creation every day. And that's why it says on that day we got the Torah. It's renewed. And therefore we have to prepare ourselves with purification during the counting of the Omer to acquire ourselves a new heart, that God gives us this new heart. And Ruach Nachon, and God hopefully will give us a new spirit in our souls. So it starts as a pagan holiday of reaping, and it becomes the holiday of reaping a new soul and destroying the evil inclination and fixing the whole world, so that it's a renewal of the entire creation, and the whole world is born again. So thank you for joining us for a discussion of the meanings of the holidays of Shavuot. And at this time, I'll open for any comments, questions, or conversations. Anybody? It's good to have Mike and Elaine, Shira, Faye, Steve, Alan, and Michelle with us. Thanks for joining us. Anna, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. That was great. You make us do a little mental jog every once in a while. It makes it fun.
That's the way the work goes. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for your participation. We appreciate it. All right, everybody doing okay today?
Everyone's doing well.
Good.
Yes, we're doing well.